Can be hard when you grow up. People fill you with doubt. You start thinking about what you're gonna do now. And it's do or die, gotta make it count. So lose your worries, let your problems go on until my whole body burns out. I ain't never gonna slow down. I ain't never gonna slow down.
Welcome everyone, this is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about personal, professional development, leadership training, and just how you can start to take action in your day. Now I understand that performance and leadership coaching might seem very executive, like, oh, this is only for high-level leaders. Oh, this is only for people who are business owners. Well, let me tell you something. You are a leader in your own right. You just don't know it yet. You might not have uncovered that ability. You might not have uncovered that job title yet. There is no issue with you not being a leader today, but there is an issue with you not stepping into leadership. Leadership in your own life, becoming accountable for what you do in your day. For people who just kind of go with the ebb and flow of life. That's fine if that is what you want, but most people, they dream of something bigger than what they have right now. They want maybe a big house, cars, admiration from people, fame, glory. It can be that. But it can be as simple as maybe you just want to be a father. Maybe you just want to be a mother, the best parent you can be. Maybe you want to be the best daughter or the best son. It can be that. But do you show up every single day? Do you show up when it counts? And sometimes, even though we have those aspirations, we don't, because we are falling back to comfort. We are falling back to everything is okay right now. Well, everything is not okay because I want you to be great. But then again, life is not about what I want. It's about what you want. So I'm going to ask you a question. What do you want out of life? Do you want greatness? Do you want mediocrity? Or do you want what you have right now? Maybe that is mediocrity. Maybe that is greatness. But if it's not something that you can be proud of in 80 years, let's change it today. Today, I'm going to be bringing on a performance and leadership coach, Aaron Trahan. He's going to be helping us understand his work and how he helps elevate people to new heights in their life. Welcome, Aaron Trahan, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
What's up, Michael? Thanks for having me. Excited for the conversation.
I'm excited too. We're going to be having a great one. We're going to be talking about your work. You are a performance and leadership coach, and we're going to be diving in the world of performance and leadership today. Before we begin, what got you into this work?
Yeah, it's for me, it actually started out being on the other side of the table as a client. The past 15, 16 years for me has been spent as a senior level executive leader, both in corporate environments as well as in startup environments. And I was jumped into a leadership position at a very early age. And while I learned how to swim in a sink or swim environment and had some success, you ultimately get to a point that the famed executive coach Marshall Goldsmith talks about in the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And so that was a kind of a perfect opportunity, I guess you could say, for my quarter life crisis of saying, okay, I made a lot of mistakes on the way. The ego's a little big now. I've had some success. I need to get back to the drawing board. I've got to redesign and redefine how it is I'm going to chart the path to next level success. That was my launch into coaching, was getting an executive coach for myself. And it really opened my eyes to some of the opportunities that I was either willfully ignoring or just not quite taking action on. And for me, it was around leading teams, leading people, leading organizations. We don't come out of college just learning how to lead large teams. It's kind of something we have to get some experience. To make a long story short, we started focusing on a development area to convert a weakness into a strength. That evolved into a strong interest, which then further evolved into a passion, and really what kind of led me into finding my most purposeful work, where about a year and a half ago decided to not make this such a hobby anymore and go all in to make the biggest possible impact that I can make.
And it's very similar to other professions like teaching. When you go to school to be a teacher, they give you all the knowledge that you need to be a teacher. But the moment you go into a classroom, you have a bunch of kindergartners, if you're a kindergarten teacher, running around, not listening, fighting over crayons. And you're like, I didn't learn this in school because you're learning the knowledge base, what they need to learn, different methodologies. And then you are getting thrown into the mix. And it could be very similar to if you're in a leadership role at a very young age, you might have all the knowledge, maybe some skills, but then when you have to manage a team, it's something that you have to learn, acquire on the go. And some people can get it. And as you said, you can sink or swim. What would you say is maybe some of the biggest issues that you see in leaders today, young leaders or old leaders? It could be either.
Yeah, it really comes into the concept of continuous improvement. And what I find with a lot of high performance leaders that have a very established track record, that have a sparkling resume of all their prior achievements, but not handled correctly, sometimes our current success can be the very thing that prevents our future success. You think about what happens on the other side of achievement, there is that natural tendency to kind of, okay, I've kind of arrived. I kind of think I have this thing all figured out. We don't prepare as much. We maybe don't work as hard as we did on our way up. We kind of leave learning mode. We kind of think that we're the subject matter expert now. We want to be the ones dishing out the advice, not continuing to be kind of maintaining that beginner's mindset. If I could summarize all that, it really comes down to being a lifelong learner is the single greatest sustainable competitive advantage that we can give ourselves. And success and ego and all the things that come along with achievement can oftentimes knock people out of that learning journey. And the second that complacency starts to kind of knock on the door after you've got some of the wins, after you kind of feel like things are going pretty well, when complacency finds its way in and pulls you into that comfort zone, and you now start resting on what you've achieved in the past and no longer continue to push forward to see what you're capable of, I think it creates a pretty interesting dynamic where the comfort zone tells that narrative of you've arrived. You can play it a little easier now. Play it safe. And when you start listening to that voice, nothing stays static, right? If you're not growing, you will at least in some degree start declining. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I see is, the second you think you have it all figured out is the second that you start that eventual decline.
And I can 100% agree with that because it is so true. When I was just finishing college, and I mean, I worked full-time, part-time job to put myself through college, and I did 18 credits, and it was intense. And what I can say is, after, when I was all done and I had my career, I was like, this is easy now, right? I'm coming home watching movies, going on hikes on the weekends, and I'm like, where did all this free time come? And one of the things I failed to do early on was to continue education. And it wasn't until I think 2016, graduating in 2013, I said, I need to start reading more books. I need to start getting coaching. And that is when everything changed because I was a teacher and then I became a coach. And I can tell from my years of teaching, you can get into the mindset of thinking you have it all figured out, especially if you're a young person. You just have that ego. You just come in. I got my degree. I got my piece of paper that says that I know some stuff, but do you know everything? And I always find that wisdom is going to trump knowledge 95% of the time. Let's talk about wisdom when it comes to you coaching people that are younger than you versus older than you, because I'm sure an older person that you might coach might say, look at this young guy coming in thinking he knows everything. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it is an interesting dynamic. I think the one thing that holds true is wisdom is not something that is given. Wisdom is something that is earned, right? And so regardless of the age gap, a client being younger than me, a client being older than me, I think my unique perspective to approaching a strategic partnership that's helping anyone at any level go from good to great or find that next best version all centers around a bias for action, that earned wisdom, that earned knowledge, that earned experience. I think, regardless of age, the single biggest mistake anyone can make is inaction. We've already kind of talked about this, but when you think about, you hear some people kind of talking about maintaining or just keeping the status quo. I think the perspective that I try to share is lose that word, lose that definition. Look at everything around us, whether it's our relationships, business trends, society, culture, the weather, anything. Nothing stays status quo. Everything is evolving. If you are not taking the action to continue to involve yourself, invest in your development, find out from an engagement such as coaching, the opportunities to be able to expand and broaden your perspective, to help see and shine light on areas that may be blind spots, having that partner that can stretch your thinking, regardless of the age. I think we all need that in our lives to not only generate that high quality feedback loop, but to ensure that we're making the best investment we can possibly make, and that's investing in ourselves. And so anytime you're not taking that action, you're not getting those experience reps in. And quite frankly, the most value comes from having those type of conversations and engagements from people that may look a little bit different than you, that's had a different experience from you. Because if you're looking for someone just like you with very similar experience to engage in a coaching relationship with, you run the risk of just trying to find an echo chamber, which is not going to help you grow. So I think that diversity of perspectives, that broadening of being able to see problems and solutions through a completely and entirely different lens is super, super healthy for growth and development.
All of this is 100% things we need to know, things we need to strive for. The issue is most people are not going to take action until something bad happens, right? Maybe they are going to lose their job, right? Because someone else is coming up with new ideas. They're more of a people person, maybe. We're not building the skills. So that trauma right there can maybe make a person invoke action. Sometimes it can be really big, right? Maybe divorce, a loss of a family member. That can be really big for people to start to bring more awareness into their life. Do you think it's more of a societal thing or just a lack of knowledge, experience, wisdom thing that we wait for something bad to happen or a moment in our life where we start to look at, I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled, I want to make a difference, but I'm doing what I have always been doing. And I'm, to no avail, I'm still in the same spot. Why do people find themselves in that position more so than, all right, I graduated, I'm learning, I'm educating myself, I'm growing. Let me find more people that help me grow than the alternative.
Yeah, I think it's unpacked in the word that you were just using, growth. So when we think about growth, growth is not meant to be easy. Yes, there's all kinds of books and articles, and it's so easy to hop on LinkedIn and share these things about growth. It's easy to think about growth. It's actually very difficult to engage yourself in growth and especially live a life that drives continuous improvement. Growth and comfort do not coexist. Growth will never promise you up front, this is going to be easy, this is going to be fun. It's not meant to be. Growth is all about stretching yourself, challenging yourself. Growth is all about finding those opportunities that take you to the very outer edges of your current capabilities. Now that we have that piece of inventory on the table, let's zoom out and think about human psychology. We as humans crave comfort. We as humans crave security. We crave stability. And the older we get, the more experienced we get, and even the more successful we get, we are by default going to take a more risk-averse approach to life. The older we get, we're not going to want to shake the boat. We're not going to want to do things that have a perception of a high probability of failure. So I think a lot of it is human nature that we can either attack reactively or proactively. I think you already mentioned the reactive approach is when there's a forcing mechanism of a life event, a divorce, illness, risk of losing our job, whatever that forcing mechanism is that creates a reaction from any professional to say, okay, I need to go out and get help to elevate myself. The minority takes a proactive approach. They may just have a fire. They may have what I refer to as the performance mindset, which is that bias for action to always improve. They almost use the continuous improvement religion to just get 1% better every day. That's always going to be the minority that has that spirit, that desire for growth as a proactive forcing mechanism. But let's face it, humans like to be comfortable. And so for the vast majority, it is going to require that reactive forcing mechanism that's going to kind of shock the system, get us out of our comfort zone and say, we need to change. Almost going to have the same experience that I went. I reached a certain level to where I wasn't investing in myself to the same level that I was and said, okay, if I want to keep this train going, if I want to keep this climb up the mountain, I've got to do things different. Everything that I've done to get me up to this point for the vast majority is not going to be what takes me to the next level. I think it's when we face those fork in the road moments. If you think about that reactive stance, I think a lot of people just get sucked into the comfort zone. You've probably talked to a lot of great salespeople that can be highly persuasive and convince you of anything. But let's face it, the most persuasive voice on the planet is that voice inside of our very own head coming from inside the comfort zone. It will spin any narrative possible to convince you to opt for comfort, to not go to that place where you're stretched and challenged and where you're on that growth journey where it is hard at the beginning and messy in the middle. That's not fun. People may think they want that until they take action and start realizing what it actually takes to continue to grow at a sustainable rate. It's kind of my long-winded way of saying is the comfort zone is the ultimate trap. It's the thing that holds people back from proactively doing the things that we all know need to get done for us to elevate and grow. But for so many of us, it requires that life event to then drive that reactive forcing mechanism to say, okay, now it's time to act because I have to.
100% agree with the comfort zone. I say stay away from it as much as you can. I understand there's going to be moments when you need to recoup, you need to rewind or unwind. And if you have to do that, cool, right? Understand the difference between reaching burnout, being in burnout, avoiding burnout. A lot of people just kind of go until there's no more tread on the tires or whatever. You can do that, but you're going to find that you're going to be less proactive when it matters the most. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing you're probably going to do because you're burned out, you're tired, you're frustrated, is you're probably going to pick up your phone, right? You might do things that are not meaningful to you. Sit down on the sofa, watch a movie. First thing in the morning, I'm like, okay, cool. But there are things that you can be doing in order to give you the mindset necessary for leadership. Because we talked about, I understand comfort is there. It's lovely. Like if we can live in that comfort and have progress, I would say go for it. But most people just remain static in that comfort. They think about it, they might do something here and there, but it's not enough to propel them forward. When we start to think about becoming leaders, our true leadership self, because everyone can be a leader. Not everyone is showing up as leaders, as I'm sure we can both agree. They're just living in that comfort. They have the potential, but they're not reaching for it yet. What are some steps a person can take in order to step out of that comfort more often? Maybe it can be journaling. Maybe it could be going to the gym. What are your steps?
Yeah, for me, I kind of think about this in terms of an operating system. What I help clients do is basically connect a couple of things that they may be already familiar with and they may already know, but it's very siloed knowledge. It's very disparate pieces of information. But what happens when you connect it into an operating system? And so for me, the very first place starts with mindset. And sure, there's a lot of mainstream definitions around you either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. I kind of like to think about things in terms of performance mindset, which what thinking and believing is to a growth mindset. I think taking action is to a performance mindset. It's having the mindset to be able to measure and track and have that 1% gain on a daily basis. And what the foundation for that is actually a 100-plus-year-old timeless quote from Henry Ford. And that is, whether you think you can or think you can't, you will always be right. So getting the mindset right first that you can is always where we have to start. My next steps are really revolving around awareness and clarity. Awareness is, I kind of like to say, you can't improve, enhance, or develop something you're not aware of. If you're not aware of a weakness, there's no way in hell you can convert it into a strength. I also compare this to, if you pull out your phone, you go to Google Maps. For Google Maps to work for you, you've got to be very clear on two key data points: your current location and your destination. If you don't have one of those two things, the app's not going to do anything for you. There is no route to generate. This is a dependency for it to work. So when we think about our own personal growth journeys and our own development, it's kind of shocking that so many of us aren't clear on those two data points. And that's where I like to start with clients is, where are we right now? What's led us here? What are the superpowers, the kryptonites, the good, the bad, the ugly? Let's get a brutally honest, accurate assessment of where we are. Now let's paint the picture of the vision. Where are we wanting to go? Because if we don't have those two things, we could create a route to anywhere and it may not mean a damn thing, right? So once we have the awareness and the clarity around those two data points, we move into what I like to refer to as a goal system. It's not just a goal. I think goals can be very abstract, very up in the air. I'm a firm believer that we need systems. If you can't track it, if you can't measure it, we don't know where the milestones are, the probability of the goal being achieved is slim to none. Implementing a goal system that helps drive day over day, week over week progress is where the magic is. And then the last piece that sits on top of it, accountability. This is arguably the most important piece, because if you do the first 4 steps right and you don't have this 5th piece in place, you run the risk of building a house of cards that could all come crashing down. And when we think about accountability, I like to talk to people about motivation. And to really drive my point home is that motivation's a fraud. Motivation will be there at the beginning. It'll give you that sugar high. It'll get you excited about starting. But once you start and you face those obstacles and you need that push, you need that fuel, it won't be there. It's part-time. It's not full-time. It's inconsistent. When you need it the most, it won't be anywhere to be found. To be truly accountable, you've got to replace motivation with discipline. And if you're disciplined on all the things that we talked about, and discipline sits at the peak of that mountain, driving accountability, these are steps in a framework that is largely undefeated. It's not rocket science, but it absolutely requires next level discipline. And if you commit to that, whatever that point A to point B is, this can be a system that will get you there.
I know about commitment, but when we become very clear on what we want, we figure out where we are, the things we want to accomplish, things we want to remain accountable toward. Those dreams, goals, aspirations, desires, whatever you want to call them, sometimes they can be very scary, right? They're big, right? They say if you have a dream or goal and if it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough.
Not big enough. That's right.
But the issue is most people are afraid. they will run away from fear, from hardship before they go toward it. How do we get people into the mindset to go after the things that they're afraid to do, the hard work per se?
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting point because, in my opinion, where I see a lot of that angst, that anxiety, that fear, it's rooted in failure, right? We are so afraid to be seen as not achieving. We're so afraid to be seen as looking foolish, trying and failing. And so I think it really starts with a perspective shift, right? I think we need to be honest with ourselves. Some goals, and quite frankly, I would say the best goals, there's a little secret, aren't meant to be achieved. When you think about your personal development, when you think about being a father, when you think about being a husband, some of our most important roles in life, there's no finish line. It's a state of continuous improvement. It's an infinite gain, not a finite result that we're trying to get. And so I think we got to sit back and realize that, look, sometimes these goals, especially these big aspirational goals, aren't meant to have this cookie cutter standardized finish line like we think it was meant to, or how we were raised to kind of think that goal achievement is supposed to look like. Sometimes our goals are meant to be our North Star, that gravitational pull that is the forcing mechanism that drives our current behaviors, that drives our habits, that drives our routine, that drives our momentum. It's constantly attempting to achieve something, knowing that that big aspirational goal out there maybe sometimes isn't meant to be achieved, right? So if I were to tell you my goal is to be the best possible father to my kids that I can possibly be, that's an infinite game, man. There's no finish line. There's not going to be someone that knocks at my door and tells me, hey, mission accomplished. Congratulations. You can go take a break now. Don't worry about being a good dad anymore. You've accomplished it. It doesn't work that way. So I would say use those infinite goals as a way to keep you committed to continuous improvement. When you can get just 1% better every single day, I'm sure you're a big fan of James Clear's Atomic Habits book, and the numbers speak for themselves. That 1% gain on a daily basis compounds into something very staggering over time. And so when we zero in and target that fear of failure, we have to completely change our definitions. Failure is not something that is opposite of success. Failure is something that is part of the journey to success. When I think about if we had to replace a definition with something else, back to one of the biggest issues we talked about, which is going to be inaction, imagine what we would achieve and the progress we would make behind some of our biggest, most aspirational goals if failure now meant, instead of not achieving, to now not trying. I think if that's how you started to define failure, a lot of things would look different for you in terms of what you would be trying, what you would be attempting, versus what you would be kind of scared out of even starting.
And that's a great point. I was just going to bring up that aspect of, if someone is not taking action, is it considered a failure for the day? Because we know we can take the action, right? We know we can go to the gym, we can call a coach, a nutritionist, we can do things, right? And some of them can be very difficult. Some of them can be eye-opening, and sometimes we just want to remain blind. I like to think of it as a lot of people just throw things into the corner.
Yep.
Emotion, throw it away. I don't want to deal with it right now. Too much for me. Too stressed out already. And I don't need something extra. They would rather put things on hold, put things by the wayside. Think of to-do list. People have full list of things that they have to do. Maybe their most important things are on top, but they'll skip those important things and they'll do the things that just keep them afloat. I have a blog coming out about that, but I want to get your take on it. Why do people do the things that keep them afloat but not prospering? Think of the rat race, whatever you want to think of it. They stay afloat but not prosper.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I think it all ties back to finding that form of comfort, right? when you're skipping over the things that you know are the biggest priorities, but also are going to present the biggest challenges, it's easy to go to maybe some more of the thoughtless task to check these boxes, kind of stay busy doing other things. That's kind of the interesting thing about procrastination. We don't procrastinate things to become less busy. We fill the time doing other things, but it's those things that don't present that challenge. It allows us to go back on our heels and be more comfortable. And so, yeah, I like to think about, you asked an interesting question about what happens. I mean, do we define today as a failure if we don't take action? I'd love to have my clients zoom out and kind of put themselves in the position of their 80-year-old self, right? I feel like this persona is the biggest persona you should be getting advice from, because your inaction today for search of comfort and safety and security is going to show up as regret for that 80-year-old at some point in the future. You're never going to be stressed out and thinking about the what ifs or should have beens for the actions you took and failed, because there's learning and experience and that earned wisdom that sits on the other side of that. So you're never going to be down about the things that you tried and failed. What's going to sit most heavy in that rocking chair on the front porch for your 80-year-old self is the things you know you should have tried that you didn't. And so now when the game clock is nearing zero, you're out of youth, you're out of energy, all you're left with is what ifs. What if I would have tried? How different would my life have been? So I kind of think of that decision of to take action or to stay inactive. Think about it in terms of regret minimization. What is your 80-year-old self going to regret more? You taking action and maybe looking foolish in front of your peers, but learning a hell of a lot, or just not acting and knowing deep down in your core, you're not playing your best game. You know there's potential still in there that you're not tapping into. Listen to your 80-year-old self, because they'll tell you what to do.
I love that aspect. I always like to look at 10 years ahead because for most people, when they start to look at 80 years old, they're just like, oh man, my back hurts and things like they're going to give themselves every other issue besides the ones that need to be focusing on right now. And I think our TikTok brains and our smartphones kind of exacerbated the issues a lot of people are facing today with procrastination and not taking action. But I have found if you get a coach, if you get a mentor, if you get someone in your corner, you're going to be so much more accountable toward yourself. And you can have a friend. It kind of works sometimes. I have seen it not work more often than it worked. I always say, have to get some skin in the game. My life didn't change until I got skin in the game because if you don't invest in yourself, your mindset is it's just like a discrepancy. It's just like, yes, I'm listening to the podcast, I'm reading the personal development books, but I'm still not investing in myself. Yeah, you're investing time, but sometimes money can be greater, especially if you don't have a lot of it. But sometimes you can have a lot of money and time is more valuable to you. So you have to figure out which priorities are you looking at and then how you can leverage someone else's expertise and how they can help propel you forward. And I have to say, our conversation today, Aaron, spot on. Whether you're an employee, a high level exec, or a business owner, they're going to learn so much from your wisdom, from your knowledge, from your business overall. Because again, question after question, answer after answer, spot on. I loved every bit of it. How can people find you?
Yeah, I think the easiest place to find more about how I help leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs is going to my website. That's performancemindsetcoaching.co, no M. And then I also welcome anyone to jump on LinkedIn. Let's connect. I'm pretty active on there. I'm trying to be a value generator through the platform. Keeping up with me there, trying to dispense helpful pieces of insight almost on a daily basis that broadens the perspective, right? That stretches the thinking, that helps people leave the comfort zone to chase after in heavy pursuit of their absolute best version. And if that works for one person, for me, hey, I'm happy with that.
And right after this, I'm going to connect with you on LinkedIn if I'm not already, because I'm looking forward to reading some of your content. It is so invigorating. It is so inspiring. I'm going to be throwing all those links in the description box below. So anyone who's listening, watching can tune in to what you're doing every single day. And I can almost guarantee that if they really give that 1% and then eventually get to that 100%, night and day from where you are today is going to be your life in the future. Don't lie in comfort. Don't be full of inaction in your day. Start to take action. Get yourself someone in your corner like Aaron who's going to help you on that journey to something better in life. I want to thank you, Aaron, for coming on, spending some time, and talking about your work. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to that interview, watching that interview with Aaron and myself. He is spot on with everything he talked about. I think I said 100% 2 or 3 times because I'm listening and I'm like, this is so true. This is gold. This is gold. Literally everyone. If you thought about buying a diamond mine or a gold mine, look no further. This episode is it. Because now you have everything you need right in front of you to take action. You have a resource right in front of you, a person who's willing to help right in front of you right now. Maybe they're not right in front of you, but virtually, right? You can listen to the audio, you can watch the video, and you can learn about what he does, how he helps people. And I understand that when you try to do something and you fail, it can leave a bad taste in your mouth. But what I will say, and this is something that you have to become more comfortable with. We talked about staying away from comfort, but I want you to be comfortable failing. I want you to be uncomfortable or find comfort in being uncomfortable. Eventually, you develop a callous toward that uncomfortableness, to that agree. Like if you find someone unagreeable, think about if you talk to certain people. I talk to people that maybe I don't resonate with every single day, but yet I talk to them. I love them. I cherish them because I understand that what they're living is their life. But yet, I don't want to simply belittle their opinion, their current circumstance, because they do have the potential, the same potential that I have. They have the same privilege that I have. And I understand that there's different parts of the world, that there's different cultures, but it doesn't take away the fact that we are human and that you have potential within you. You can take action or you can not take action. You can have that inactionless life. But I want you to start to take more action. I want you to be more proactive in your day because there is a goodness, there's a greatness that comes from you taking more action, from you being brave for one day at least out of the year. And then next year, 2 days. And then the year after, 3 days. And I mean, we don't have to go a day at a time because we don't have 365 years for us to be taking one day out of the year, but maybe a week, right? Can we do that? Can you do that? Be brave once a week, 52 days out of the year. That right there is going to lead to the next year, 104 days. And within 6 years, your whole life is going to change. And then 7 years, you're not even going to notice the difference. It can take some time to change. It doesn't have to take 7 years. It can take a year. It could take 3 months. It depends on what you're looking at, where you are, and what you inevitably want in the end. Because for me, when people talk about retiring early, I'm like, what are you going to do? There's nothing to do if you retire at age 40. I understand you might have some mentoring people and you might do some fun stuff and go on trips and stuff. And I mean, if I go on a trip, I'm antsy after like 2 or 3 days. I'm like, get me out of here. Put me back in the office, my office. But guess what? There is a mindset there. You can say, I'm going to reach a spot, 40, 50, I'm going to retire. What does that mean? To be honest, most people who say they want financial freedom, I think it's only 1% reach it because financial freedom is so vague. I just want to have enough money. Okay, great. Is it keeping up with inflation? Are you going to keep up with your lifestyle that you're not living right now, that you're going to wait for later on? Are you calculating everything? Most people are not. Most people are not. But this is beyond the aspect of what we can do today. Becoming leaders, being top performers, not only in our workplace, but in our relationships too, with our friends and our family, our loved ones. That right there requires leadership. That right there requires us to be the best version of ourselves. And if you have found that you are not the best version of yourself right now, and you have not been the best version of yourself, and you have been putting off and you have been hurting yourself and the people that you love, what are you waiting for? There is some urgency that is necessary. And I understand that it can be scary to take the first step, but you don't have to take that step alone. And I have found that you are going to be less afraid if you have people with you. If you have a coach, if you have a mentor, if you have a guide, if you have someone there to talk to speak to, for them to talk to you so you can listen, you are going to be primed. Your mindset is just going to be primed and ready for whatever comes your way. Bad day, failure, inaction, comfort, a lot of things are going to be coming at you. But I would say I would rather have a shield in front of me to block most of those things, and then for you to be the sword to fight back. So today is an opportunity for you to take action, for you to fight back on all the inaction, on all the comfort that you have created for yourself, on all the procrastination that you have been doing, and start to elevate yourself to a new and higher self. It can be just mindset, but it can be everything in the end. Your world, your life depends on you taking action. It depends on you taking ownership of your life today. So if you're ready to grow, and if you're not afraid to get out of that comfort zone, reach out to Aaron, reach out to us here at Reven Concepts, and learn how you can change your life today. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.